What's up, and welcome to The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I highlight teachers' philosophies, strategies, and personalities. Today, I've got Dr. Leo Magallon here. What's up, Leo?
Hey, how's it going, Quincy?
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad I could help support and we could get word out about all the things we're doing in our
Yeah,
classrooms in our neighborhood. So thanks.
yeah, that's great. That's great. And yeah, you were my mentor teacher when I first started teaching, so I feel like I got to give back and do this interview with you.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Definitely. Good
Yeah,
time.
yeah, but I remember like one of the big things in doing that was that you were a great master teacher. And I feel like one of the reasons is because you started a school, right? So can you tell me about that? Like what made you want to start a school?
Yeah, awesome. So well, it wasn't just me, right? But it was a group of teachers that got together. I actually started teaching in the neighborhood that I grew up in, the school that I went to. And as a group of teachers, we really saw that there was a need for a STEM-based or STEM specific school that offers engineering curriculum during the school day, not just as an after-school thing. So when we found out about the opportunity that we could start our own school through LAUSD, we jumped on it, right? We had the drive, we had the energy, and we learned a lot along the way. And so we just really did it to provide a need to a something that was missing in our neighborhood, right? Because to get access to a STEM education, we had students that were getting bussed out to the other side of town, sometimes for an hour, 2 hours in LA traffic, where no, you could have a quality program here in your neighborhood also.
Okay, yeah, and that's good. And I like how you were able to start the school and you just had people around you who were like-minded and like wanted to do it also. But in order for you to become someone like that, you had to get into education, right? So I know you studied physics in school, but how did you get into education?
So yeah, that's a good question, right? I do find myself looking back on that too. I was encouraged by a friend to take an education course in college, right? Just to switch up with all the math and physics that I was already taking. And I took it, right? And I thought, okay, this will be like a quick change of pace. I'll just get through the course and I'll be done. But it just so happened, right? I had this amazing instructor, and we had to do observation hours in different schools. And she picked different sites specifically for me. And so I think at the end of the course, she took me out, pulled me to the side and said, Leo, I put you in these courses, these school sites to visit on purpose, right? So that you could see and have a different feel about what's going on in different classes in the neighborhood you grew up in. And hopefully now you could see that what you went through is not common, right? The system isn't fair for people like you, people of color. So now I'm challenging you to take it on yourself to do whatever you can to try to change it. So it was like a little personal challenge, right? And then during that time in college, I was also working for an organization. It was called the Neighborhood Partnership Program, but essentially it linked our school with neighborhood schools to do tutoring during the school day. So I got to see lots of different classrooms. I got to see lots of different teaching styles. And then also, right, I think a third thing was one of my physics professors recruited me to be one of the student technical inspectors for a boat building project with high school students. So I got to see, different aspects of like how I could use my technical background, right, using my physics degree in the classroom setting and make learning fun and make learning valuable and meaningful, where I think I found it difficult as a college student to make those connections, and I struggled in college. So my mission when I started to become a teacher was that I was going to make sure that my students had the skills, ability, and confidence to be able to do well, and so that they'd be light years ahead of me when they got started in school also.
Yeah, that's great. And in me teaching physics too, that's one of my goals. I want to make physics accessible because I see how important this education stuff is and like how far it can really take you. So that's good on you for that.
Awesome, thanks.
But one of the things you were talking about before is that you saw the importance of giving back or teaching in the community where you grew up in. And I know you are a big influence and inspiration to a lot of students out there. So can you maybe tell me about some of your personal importance on why you want to be in those same type of areas?
So I think, well, it stems back to another experience in college, right? During my time as an undergraduate is when that there was a little documentary that came out, Waiting for Superman, right? And it actually highlighted students from my neighborhood and called the schools that I went to, they called them dropout factories. So I took offense to that, right? Just thinking that's where I went, that's where my community is, that's where home is. What are these people trying to say? And so I took it upon myself to go to those neighborhoods, to that neighborhood, specifically Boyle Heights, because that's where I grew up. I have a personal connection, as I said, with the community, and I see myself in a lot of my students. So I think it was important to teach in the communities that you grew up in, because you understand what the families are going through. You understand with what the difficulties are of the community. And so you're able to bring what you learned in college and you bring it back so that students are able to have an easier time when they transition to into higher education, or they pursue their other career goals along the way. So I think that's valuable.
Yeah, yeah. And I get that in like trying to make students' lives easier for the future. But I'm sure in doing that, you get some type of pushback from that, right? Like physics and engineering is pretty radical in these areas, as you said. But like, what do you get when you're like fighting these types of stereotypes where like students say, oh, that's white engineering and robotics and stuff? How do you get past that?
So, I mean, first it's about getting students to believe in themselves, right? And the reason that they think that is because there's also a lack of exposure, right? Our students don't see people of color that are engineers, or don't get to participate in types of projects or competitions like that. So at our school, right, our philosophy was you learn by doing. So we did enter a lot of local, regional, national, and international engineering competitions where they did see that, you know, they were one of the few people of color, the few brown kids that were participating. So, but it was mostly about making sure that our students had the skills, right, and the confidence to be able to go out there and not just participate, but to really compete and be equals with the other people that they saw there at the competition. But I think a lot of that mentality of it being, you know, being good at math, at science, engineering, it's a white thing, is just from a lack of exposure, right? And meaningful interaction with the content. I think that's what it really stems down to.
Yeah, and I like that. And getting kind of off the script here, I read something about students of color and this what did you say? It's the just do it or like learn through practice type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
Learn by doing, yes.
Yeah, learn by doing. And students in like these other high-end areas, they have the resources to learn by doing and also to like think through their stuff before they actually do it. As opposed to I've been in a lot of programs where it's, hey, I don't have all the answers, so we're just going to think by doing. How do you feel about that difference? Like, do you think that's true in having like the resources and the time to actually think more through before you do?
Uh, yes, so I think part of the problem that does exist is the lack of resources, right? And mostly on the monetary side, where a lot of schools in the inner city neighborhoods don't they lack the resources, right? Monetary, mentors, equipment, access, and that's a reality. And I think when you it becomes even more difficult when you have students that in neighborhoods like Boyle Heights and East LA, where not only is it access to these resources, but then access to the language, right? A lot of our students speak Spanish as their first language, and we're trying to catch up and make sure that kids are proficient in English as well. But I think that's really the case when there's a focus on trying to catch up and meet expectations in terms of you know, with standardized state testing and whatnot, that you lose focus about what learning is really supposed to be. It's not just a test result, a number, right? It's about the experiences and the connections and what you can do with that as well. So yes, I mean, and that's always was an issue at our school, right? Those resources and getting funding, getting sponsors, and you know, because of that is one of the reasons that we went ahead and we also started a nonprofit organization, right? The Si Se Puede Foundation, where we were able to get some donations and get that money to go 100% directly to our students in our programs, and get that exposure and get that experience and get that, and really just use STEM as a platform to showcase the talent that our students have.
Yeah, and that's great. And it's unfortunate that we do have to catch up in those certain areas, but I think what you said is like really important. The experience in catching up is what's more important. So yeah, it's really good. Um, Now I want to talk about you kind of personally. You've done a lot in your education career, right? Like you're teaching, you started a school, you're doing all these programs at the schools, first Mesa. Now you're an assistant principal, right? Can you tell me about that change?
So I think I was motivated or like driven to it by my students, right? So one of the sayings that I have, right, is that I've always told my students: if you stay ready, you never have to get ready, right? So what that means is that you always you take advantage of every opportunity that you're presented with, right? Hey, do that extracurricular activity, take on that internship, join that honor society, take that extra class, because you don't know the skill set that you're going to develop that's going to prepare you for something in the future, right? And so I've always taken that to heart, where I've always, even after I finished my master's degree, right, I took on extra coursework at Claremont Graduate University, where I met you, right? I took on the initiative and completed a doctorate also in educational leadership, just because of the experiences that I went through in opening a school and in starting these engineering programs with other teachers at my school. Really opened up my interest to other things. So I wanted to learn. I wanted to have that extra learning with me. And, it just came down to where I did have students ask me, so when are you going to take the next step? Right. And so I thought, I mean, this is where I want to stay here, right, in the classroom as a teacher with you. But the opportunity did come up, and in starting and running our own school, I did learn a lot about how educational systems are run. And I think this is just one step towards maybe creating greater systemic change, right? I have to move up the chain a little bit to become more and increasingly influential, learn from new people. And in this case, it led me to a different school district to see how different systems operate as well.
But is that true? Like, how much value do you put into that PhD you just got? Like, I would argue that you were already on the path before all that, Like you started school without it. You did all these programs without it. What does the PhD specifically hold?
No, so yes, I agree that, yeah, I had started a school, but then I was also in my little bubble, right? In some capacity, one could argue where you want to be a well-rounded individual in anything that you do, right? And so going to earn my doctorate at SC, I got to interact with educators from all over Southern California. And so I got to hear of their experiences, their challenges, and then I got to apply some of their solutions to our school site. But then I was also fascinated by what they were doing at their school districts as well. So I think it just being able to help me gain a broader perspective, get a little bit of an idea of how educational systems as a whole are run and how they're operated. And then just the program itself, along with the instructors and my classmates, served really as motivators to make me want to do more, right? To pursue maybe a superintendent position someday. So I think it was that motivator, gaining that social capital that I knew that I lacked, right? As I went into college, and now from a career perspective, that I was lacking that social capital as well. So I think it made me a believer that I could do more for my students.
Yeah, that's interesting. That social capital. And I'm always doing this, but talking about Kanye West, he talks about his cultural relevancy, right? Where like he's doing all this other stuff outside of music, but he said that he feels like doing music makes him more relevant in the culture, so he's able to do these other things. Is that kind of how you feel about the PhD?
Yes, in a lot of ways, because it does open doors just to have another degree, right? First of all, and then just gaining access to different perspectives and the way that things are run in different districts and in different leadership styles. And then I was one of the only classroom teachers. Everyone else was a site administrator or district level administrator. So I got to see that perspective. And in a sense, the focus of my dissertation was kind of like self-serving in a way, right? Because it was on the topic of the recruitment, preparation, and retention of the high school principal. So in a way, right, I was kind of carving my own path to see what do I have to do to get there? What are the steps? And in a lot of ways, I mean, it just opens the door, and it's a brand new network of people that I know. And really, just like we want our students to go out and show people, share their talents, right? I think this gave me an avenue for me to display what I learned and what I could possibly contribute to other areas as well. So, and then also, I mean, it goes back to, less than 1% of Latinos hold a doctorate, or less than 1% of all doctorate recipients are Latinos. So I wanted to be a part of that and just bump those numbers up just a little bit, right?
Nice, you're doing it. Yeah. And the fact that you're doing it and showing other students that you're doing it too is inspiring them. Increase those numbers. It's nice. So now, with all of this, all these accomplishments, accolades, and everything you've gotten, I want to know, why are you still in education?
So I'm still in education because I'm still a believer that, a good education, a quality education could lead to, greater opportunities for students and their families to establish, generational wealth, right? I think, my parents came over to this country, struggled to keep us afloat and help us survive. And I think part of it is my responsibility to continue to work hard and establish my family. And I think as an educational leader, I have the ability and the influence to be able to motivate students to want to do the same, right? To find their why. Might not be immediately. It doesn't mean 100% that you have to go through a 4-year college route in order to do that, but find your passion, right? Because when you find your passion and you're really, really good at it and you stay ready, you don't have to get ready for those opportunities that are going to come your way in the future. So that's why I'm still in education and still an educator, still a believer, still a motivator. And I'm always impressed by all the great things that our students can do and that they will do.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for this, Leo, for sharing. You being an inspiration to your community and everything is why I think you're one of the greatest teachers of all time. But yeah, also thank you to everyone else for listening to The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I interview teachers of colors from all over to highlight their philosophies, strategies, and personality.